Hello everyone, it's Farkid here. And in this video, I'm going to cover another small update that's unnamed. I'm going to call it Update 19. This one doesn't add too much, but it fixes a lot. There's no spoilers in this video, but the first thing I'm going to cover is the nav mesh changes, which is AI pathing and such. You may want to skip it if you don't want the illusion of game magic being ruined. I've only recently learned about this, but there are things in here that you probably want to know. Now, using the console command AI show nav graph on. If you don't know how to use console commands, just type in cheat stick into the game. Just type it and then press F1 and then your cheats will be activated. And this shows a blue outline of where the pathing for AI is. And don't be fooled, this isn't just for enemies, but this is for Kelvin and Virginia. So if you're ever having problems trying to get them into your base or having problems enemies getting into your base and you don't want them to, this is going to be the reason why. It's pretty logical how they've set it out. All the patches you see, if you look underground, they'll most likely be filled with the mesh. I'm not going to guarantee this is 100% accurate as it's just an indicator. But the things you will notice from it is that it pretty much covers everywhere except for rocks and cliffs. This is important for not having the AI getting stuck or going into places they shouldn't be. So what you see in the world isn't an accurate representation of where AI is. Game development is much more complicated than what it looks like. Well, I don't know if it looks complicated. It's up to the individual, I guess. But places where there's generally water, the AI won't go. However, there are some exceptions because Kelvin and Virginia can swim. I don't know what causes that to trigger. The caves that they've added to the game that you can walk down into, you don't have to, crawl down into a hole. They don't have any AI mesh, so you can go and then the enemies won't follow. Shallow water and lakes and ponds and creeks and stuff may have it, but anything with salt water, the ocean, they can't go. Places of interest like the docks and houses, the enemy can go. Just because you see an area where there's no nav mesh doesn't mean enemies can't get you. They can still jump and leap and such. Now, this is something that might piss off a lot of players or any other players that have tried to build on the islands. But the islands have no mesh on them, which means that if you were to build a bridge there, the enemies or Kelvin and Virginia would take the bridge, but they won't get off onto the island because there's no mesh for them to walk on. This is what I mean about you might want to skip it because the illusion has been broken. But if you want to build on an island and you want Kelvin and Virginia to be able to go out there is a way, which I'll get to shortly. Any lakes that have been frozen over, like up in the mountains and such, the nav mesh is there. Going up the mountains, the nav mesh is there up until a certain point where it's getting too rocky and stuff. I don't think the AI can go up there. Now, with rivers and such and streams, there are spots where they'll cross over, generally where there's a path. On the GPS, you can see a road. They'll generally pass there, but there are some spots where they'll cross anyway because it's shallow enough, because I don't think the enemies have access to a GPS. I think it's done quite well, how they've done the nav mesh. Obviously, it needs improvements. I'm yet to play this update properly to see the improvements made, but things like the rope bridges, they will take. If you build structures with this on, it will change the nav mesh. It will update constantly while you're building your base, because if you put a wall there, the nav mesh would be there unless it updated. So yeah, it makes sense. But if you're having trouble with pathing and that sort of stuff with Kelvin and Virginia, may want to look at this console command. If they're doing something that doesn't make sense, then it's probably worthy of a bug report. When it does reach winter and the lakes and ponds and that freeze over, the nav mesh will update and they will be able to walk on those lakes and stuff. So that little place with the island in the middle is safe until winter because then they can walk across the ice. And just to show you, I switched it over to summer and the lake defrosted and the nav mesh went away. So yeah, so if you want to get Kelvin and Virginia onto an island, this is what you should probably do. Build a bridge, obviously. When you're building the bridge, you can see the nav mesh updating, which makes sense. And getting Kelvin to follow me, he would only go as far as the floors because the nav mesh hadn't updated or spread to the island. I think this is something that they could patch in or fix at a later date. Maybe they're struggling to figure it out because they probably do know that players like building on islands. But as it stands, if you want to build on an island and you want Virginia and Kelvin to be there, they need a floor to walk on. So you're just gonna have to make a lot of floors to get them to be able to do things there. The problem is that you're going to allow enemies to come in as well. So you're gonna have to pick the battle. If you want a completely safe base with no enemies, that means you're not gonna be able to have Kelvin or Virginia come to your base. I don't know if they've designed the game this way on purpose. It wouldn't surprise me if they did, but it's quite smart. It's like the player getting punished for being a turtle or being a camper. You might disagree, but each to their own. As I extend the platform out, with Kelvin being told to follow me, he will progressively walk along those platforms. I don't know if enemies will target a bridge if it's their only path to you. It doesn't make sense if they're going to destroy the bridge when it's the only way they can get to you. But I don't know how the AI is. So hopefully I explained that well enough. I've only just learned about this stuff and I don't know much about it. But yeah, a lot of updates to pathing, AI and that sort of stuff. Hopefully Kelvin and that don't get stuck as much. They still haven't figured out a door that keeps enemies enemies out and allows Kelvin to go in and out. That would be something that would be lovely to see. Time will tell, though I think I've been going on for this subject long enough. Next is that split logs animation has been sped up after splitting log. So after the axe comes down and causes a split, the player will recover more quickly. This is really good. This is the kind of stuff I actually wanted right from the start. There's no option between removing the animations and having the animations. Why couldn't they just sped it up with a slider? Good to see that they're speeding up. I shouldn't complain when they're making improvements. Moving on. Next is that they fix the stars not rendering at night. This is crazy because this hasn't been in the game since start. The game hasn't had any stars, and that's terrible for immersion, but they've brought them back in. I don't know if they are accurate, but it's still cool. Very dependent on cloud cover. Clouds in this game aren't very good. They block out too much light. Next is that rabbits can now be electrocuted with the stun gun, or the taser. They can't call it taser because taser is actually a brand. They stun for a long time, so long in fact, that you can stun them, open up your book, find the animal cage, put it on top of them and trap them. Because when they're stunned, you can't pick them up. This is an opportunity for them to add that, where you could pick them up if they're stunned, which should be a thing. Maybe they'll add it later on. But at this point in time, if you stun them, you just build a cage on top of them and you'll capture them. Don't underestimate how difficult it was for me to do this. I tried many times. It's hard to aim this thing. The ones in real life have red dots. This one doesn't. So I don't know where it's shooting, but I've barely used this thing. Probably requires practice. Next is that rabbits now fully support big head mode. This is a mode that's in the settings, the game settings. I think it makes their heads bigger so you can headshot easier, but also it's funny to look at, I guess. Here's some of the other animals. It affects most creatures, except for birds and sharks and killer whales, I think. Next is AI characters can now eat dropped meat pickups. I tried testing this out and I couldn't get it to work. I did notice one of the cannibals eating something else, but but the reason I'm showing this is right after the big head feature, or setting, I just turned it off and recorded this bit. And one of the gold mask ones kept switching between big head mode and normal mode. Whenever he performed an animation, his head would shrink down, but when he stopped, his head would go big. So it's just a bug, and I should probably know about it. The next is that they've made a fix for falling while on Night V, not limiting speed. I'm not sure what that means exactly, whether it affects a player or the Night V, whether the Night V will keep going forward or the player will keep going forward. I did run into a few things when falling off. It felt like me as a player was being flung quite a bit more forward than before. That was very difficult to word. I said that like 5 times. The Night V, if it hits something, is going to stop, generally. Unless you crash it in a river or a stream, it will flow down a stream. But you can see it on your minimap anyway. Next is that captured puffies now have an electrocuted reaction that keeps them in the captured tied up pose. I think this is to prevent them from having bugs. But I tested it out to see if the animation was around the same, to see if they are in a tasered state. And they pretty much are. I think this is just a bug prevention method. It makes sense. And if you don't know, you can set these guys loose and they'll turn on the cannibals, but I think they hate you more than the cannibals. I'm not sure. Next is that they've added a fix for raccoons, sometimes stealing food through walls and not playing the eating animation. I don't know anything about raccoons actually taking food in the game. I didn't know it was a thing. I tried sporting it in and having drying racks and a shelf there to see if they would. Maybe because I was there, they wouldn't do it. I'm not sure. I don't know much about raccoons because I don't have them in my country. I have heard they're called trash pandas. But yes, I actually don't know if they'll just take it off the ground or they're able to take it off the racks or the shelves. I don't know. Enemies in the forest, the original game, they used to be able to take meat off your drying rack. I think they can do it in this game as well. I don't actually know. Next is that they fixed an issue that could cause multiple seagulls or ducks to land on the same point. I've noticed this before. It's good that they've made a fix for it. A common place where you often see it is when you go out to the raft where the pistol is and there'll be like 20 birds on the one body there. I spawned in 100 birds and they still didn't bundle up, so maybe they have fixed it. Next is that Kelvin now has a careful jump with a new animation when moving slower. I'm not sure which out of the two of these it is. I'm guessing it's a slower one because he's got his hands out like he's balancing, so it's like more careful. Next is that they've added snow mound blockers outside of Cave B entrance. So basically when it's snowing, this area won't fill up with snow. I don't really know why they've added this. I guess it's to make it easy to find. I did find that snow did kick up with the feet in this area, even though there's no snow on the ground. Might be just a bug oversight, I don't know. Here's me looking for problems as always. Next, they fixed being able to duplicate logs using manual tree construction. I've known about this for a while, but I don't believe in duplicating logs through exploits and glitches. It's like if you want to do that, just cheat and add log hack in. It is so much more simple. If you're going to glitch and get free logs, just cheat them in. What's the point in glitching it in when you can just do it much easier and cheat? Because basically what you're doing is already cheating, but maybe it's just their conscience feels a lot cleaner because, oh, I'm glitching, it's not cheating. I don't know. You know who you are. I'm not judging. You can do whatever you want, as long as you're having fun.
What are you talking about?
Now, there was a hotfix added while I was making this video, and it added two things. They fixed a case where the player could get stuck for a few seconds when placing floor planks in a structure. And they also fixed an issue where cutting windows with an axe would briefly cause player to transition to an idle animation. Usually a hotfix comes from a major change, and then it causes bugs unexpectedly. Now for the rest of the update notes, I'm going to let them scroll through while I read out a few that are worth mentioning, but I can't get footage for or don't want to, or plenty of reasons. Usually just not important enough. They've made a fix for cases where AI characters could not be visible. I've seen this once, I think, where an enemy was invisible and could hit me and I couldn't hit them back, I think. So this is a good one. Next is a fix for shotgun shooting off target in some cases when aiming. So I can use this as an excuse for missing all the time with a shotgun. They have a fix for not getting cooking ingredients back in the correct perishable state when removing them from the pot. My guess is that it might reset the timer, because you couldn't add rotten meat to the pot anymore, but maybe it reset the timer until it went rotten. I'm not sure. They blocked opening the screw book if the glider is equipped. The screw book is your blueprint book. Whenever they say screw, it means blueprints. I don't know why they did that. I think screw is an acronym for something, and I have a feeling they don't even remember what the acronym stands for. Just a guess. And lastly, there's a fix for the player getting into a bad state if the tutorial book is stashed and immediately re-toggled. Bad state usually means that you get stuck and you can't do crap, can't move, can't interact, anything like that. So yes, it didn't really add a lot, but it fixed a lot, especially with the AI pathing, which was something that was very immersion breaking, I found. After this AI improvements, I would like to see them add a way for Virginia and Calvin to get into the base in and out without enemies doing it. Because so far I've only found one way, and that's the tunnel of death where it has spikes. Calvin and Virginia are immune to the spikes, but enemies aren't. But you're not immune to them, so don't forget that. Anyway, I think this is a good update. I don't always want to see new content. I like to see things getting fixed so I can be immersed again. I find this game actually quite a bit less immersive than the original game. I don't know why. Maybe it had to do with AI. I'm not sure. I could be wrong. Let me know in the comments. Anyway, if you like this video, make sure you like and subscribe. Cheers.